This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945.
Welcome to Expanding Access, a podcast by Behavioral Health Tech, where we explore the cutting edge of mental health, substance use, and autism and IDD care. Each episode features insightful conversations with industry leaders who are driving real change through technology and innovation. Whether you're a provider, payer, or just passionate about expanding access to behavioral health care, you won't want to miss these stories. Let's dive in. Hello, everyone. I'm Solomé Tibubu, your host of the Expanding Access podcast, which focuses on all things to expand access to mental health, addiction, and IDD services through health equity, innovation, and technology. And sometimes the technology is not AI. Sometimes it's a novel treatment methodology or payment model, or even the concept that we should listen to youth if we want to impact their mental health. And so who better to have Tay on the podcast today? So excited for this conversation. I'd say to get started, Tay, if you'd like to introduce yourself, who you are and your organization, I think that would be great.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. So hello, everyone. My name is Telos Amour. It is a very, very long name, so most folks call me Tay. My mandatory pronouns are they, them, their, and I'm the executive director of Youth Move National. And that move in Youth Move actually stands for motivating others through voices of experience. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about Youth Move National and really just like youth advocacy, particularly in the behavioral health space, because what makes Youth Move National, I believe, fairly unique, beyond just being a national chapter-based organization, we are entirely youth-led and youth-driven. So like I have the oldest staff member at our organization. All my bosses are youth. The majority of our board are youth. The majority of our staff are youth. They're mandated to be 60% youth, our whole board. So yeah, I'm just excited to be here and to talk with you and appreciate you having me.
That is so great. I'm looking forward to asking you more about Youth Move's programs. But I also have to ask, how did you get into this field?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's like cliche, like, well, we have to go back to the beginning, but like we literally have to do. So I tell folks, and is it okay if we get a little heavy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So just like a content warning, I'll talk a little bit about some harm and some oppression that I've went through. I'll try to keep it as light as possible. But yeah, it really does start at birth for me. I feel like I was like literally born into youth advocacy in not really a great way at first. So I'm Mexican Native Indigenous, and when I was born, there was a separation from me and biological parent that was deported back to Mexico. And the remaining biological parent was not necessarily the best. We will leave it at that. So I was really born into being engaged within systems. So whether it was the child welfare system, foster care system, adoption system, we were incredibly poor. And so having to navigate services such as like Medicaid and Medicare, because there was a combination of both poverty and disability at play, being houseless for a very long time, and just like having to navigate all these different systems as a youth, like literally from birth. And not to mention, I am a disabled queer and trans person of color, right? So being a part of the BIPOC community, the 2SLGBTQIA plus community, the disability justice community, it's just sort of like, and I'm okay. I promise listeners out there, I'm okay. But it really felt like I was set up to fail from the very beginning. And so I was really looking to systems such as the behavioral health field, such as physical health field, governmental systems to provide really basic needs, right? Like food, housing, stability, all of those things. And it didn't happen. Like a matter of fact, I found navigating those systems actually both re-traumatized me from what I experienced as a youth, but also created additional trauma on top of what I was already experiencing. And so in a large part, I was really looking for love, care, affirmation, community, right? It's like, here's some big words, right, that we think are fairly simple. We kind of throw them around a lot, but like Those are powerful words. Like love is a powerful word. It like really is. And the lack of love is in some ways even more powerful than love in itself, what it can take from us. And it really kind of puts, at least for me, I'll use an I statement, it put my life then as a youth growing up and has convinced me as an adult too, really to kind of stay on this path of only survival. In a lot of ways, I feel like my trauma rewired my brain too, as well, to just be in survival mode constantly, that fight, flight, freeze, and all the other ones that come with that. And it's just been so hard to find a path to thrive, right? Find a path to that joy and celebration and having that ability to really thrive. I think of one particular story, and I know that I shared this story with you previously, so I'm excited to share it now, which has a good ending. It's not a great story in the beginning, but it has a good ending. So I was about 3, and there was this like program for inner city youth. And they came in and you could kind of pick like an arts program, right? So you could do like music, or you could do like, I think there was like a writing session, but one of them was dance, and it was ballet in particular. And I was so excited about it, and I was selected to do it. I chose dance, I got to do ballet. But the thing I was most excited about, being a little like queer and trans kid, was that I got to wear the pink dress. Like I wanted to be a princess with like my whole mind, body, heart, spirit, soul. I wanted to be a princess. And so getting to go into dance meant I would wear this pink dress. I got the pink tutu, and that was the thing that I was like super, super excited about. And it felt good because for once in my life, I felt as if I was not only noticed, right? So I was selected for something. Someone saw me, saw value in me and selected me. But 2, I had agency and self-determination. So even being that very young, I got to pick what I got to do. And I got to pick something based upon what solely made me feel good and like honored truly my identities and identities that I still hold today as a queer and trans person. And so it just felt so empowering. And I think it gave me a dose of that like love and affirmation and community and value that I so wanted, that I was so desperate for. And so I'm doing the thing, I'm loving it, it's going so good. And I made the mistake, unfortunately, of sharing with a caregiving adult the reason why I chose it. So they were asking about the recital coming up. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so jazzed, literally and figuratively, about this coming up. And I was like, and I get to wear the pink dress. And that's like the main thing. I finally get to be a princess. And they were so offended and awestruck at that dichotomy of gender, right? We have in the West here, at least in the US, the gender binary, that like someone perceivably who was a boy wanted to do something perceivably so feminine that only girls would do, right? That, and again, strong language here, that notion was both literally and figuratively beaten out of me. And it was this strong lesson at such a young age in so many different things, in so many intersectional buckets. One, the power again of self-determination and agency, especially as a youth, especially as a systems impacted youth, how beautiful and powerful that meant to me. 2, how that can feel when it's ripped away, especially for something that like had no rhyme or reason, no logic, like no transparency around. And then 3, unfortunately, it taught me a lesson in trusting adults. And that lesson was you don't actually trust adults, like at all. You don't share your full holistic self with adults. You shove that down. You need to navigate things on yourself and keep things, you know, as we say, close to the chest, figuratively, if you will. And it was a rough start. Like I was legit, I was shoved into a little league outfit. I was forced into like a ball field. And I say sports ball all the time with my friends, you know, like I'm just not a sporty spice. I am not a sporty person. And so it was a real rough lesson. Like it was tough love, quite literally. But it taught me that value of youth advocacy, letting youth lead, and what is happening with systems impacted youth. And so in a lot of ways, again, like how did I get to this field? Like I was born into it, you know? And so I was able to take those experiences and a lot more hard lessons that happened within those first few decades or a couple of decades of my life and really try to do something with it. And one of the most powerful things that happened to me was So I'll say this very lightly, the carceral system entered into my life at some point. I'm very much so justice system impacted. I was desperate for love and affirmation and community, and I found that in a gang. And I'm not proud of that, but that does serve a purpose for a lot of folk and a lot of youth, that those lack of resources, that lack of stability, that lack of love and affirmation creates things that sometimes are clearly not the best solution, but it does fill a gap. And for me, it filled the gap, but of course led to not long-term stability and far more harm long-term. And so when the justice system entered my life, I also got diagnosed, right? So I had co-occurring serious mental illness. I still have that today. So many diagnoses. I'm on my own substance use journey. So I have SUD, substance use disorder, and I engage with those things differently as an adult. But at the time, it just really equaled me being at one of my lowest points. And that's when a peer came into my life, and they just talked about their own experiences, what they were going through. And literally, and I'll use that term literally, in that moment, more so than any teacher, truancy officer, police officer, psychiatrist, therapist, doctor, clinician, primary care provider, adult, parent, caregiver, more than any of those folks that, make up, like, I guess in the field, what we would call a system of care, both uppercase letters and lowercase letters, failed to do for me, which was just connect on a personal level to say, I get it because I lived something similar, and you're not broken. Like, you are seen, you are loved. There's ways to navigate this. I've been navigating this. And if you need someone, I'm here. And I'm here to just even listen if you want. We don't have to problem solve. Just tell me what's going on. And it just was so powerful to me. I'd never experienced something like it. And it's so seemingly simple, right? It's like common sense. Like, of course, like, find friends. But there was just something so beautiful in that moment that sort of flash forward to today and to your question, right? To get us back on track. That's a big part of what Youth Move National does, is youth peer support, right? Is finding those folks who have those two buckets, similar in identity. So like for me, I needed someone who was a queer and trans person of color, disabled, shared those identities, and then shared those experiences as well, right? Co-occurring serious mental illness, substance use disorder, criminal justice system involvement, and so on and so forth. Finding those people and then connecting them together to create that connection, to create that healing, that powerful healing that can come from that. And we do it with immense training and curriculum and a huge and like all of these things, right? Really to ensure that it's a healthy as possible, it's as safe as possible environment. But that's a big part of what Youth Move National does, is that youth peer support. And I just feel so honored to be a part of that, because that's for me where it felt like my life truly started, was in that moment where I started to see the difference between what survival was and what thriving could be. And although I haven't quite made the full shift, I try my best. So that's how I got into the field, and a little bit more about Youth Move National, if that's helpful.
Wow, Tay. I say it all the time, just how grateful I am for you to be willing to share your powerful story, and that you are the one to lead Youth Move National. I mean, who better, really? I couldn't have articulated better the power of peer support. I mean, it comes up so often in our field and even throughout the BHT community, but really there's nothing quite like a peer. And I'm so grateful that you would share your story to just demonstrate that so beautifully. So I'd like to ask you a little bit more about your perspective working with youth now, yourselves and your team. What are adults getting wrong about youth mental health? Let's start there.
Oh, I'm so excited about this question. I feel like a lot. Yeah, I feel like a lot. And not to throw shade or put people on blast, but even like practitioners like in our field that are very visible and I'm sure doing very good work, I feel like they do get a lot wrong. One, because rarely am I seeing an organization like Youth Move National out there in the spaces that we are sometimes in that's truly youth-led and youth-driven. And again, I'm an adult speaking on behalf of youth as well, right? So I am complicit in this as well. But I'm seeing a lot of large organizations that don't have youth advisory councils. They don't have youth on their board. They don't even consult with youth. They just get up there, they do evidence-based academia type things that like don't involve peers, don't involve the community in which they serve. And so one, I just really believe that the approach is wrong in a lot of ways. And even if they do some of those things, they tend to be done in a very like tokenistic way, in a very like exploitive way, in a very voyeuristic way. Like they want to hear our sob stories, right? Give me your pain so I can put it on a donation brochure, so I can send it to my donors, so I can fund my organization. And it's like, okay, cool. But like, if we're talking like sort of topics and issues that I think are sort of like in the cultural zeitgeist of our time, one of the biggest things I'm seeing folks get wrong is social media. Social media is huge. Like I've heard y'all talk about it on this podcast. Like I know it's a thing. And I also know it's a thing that causes harm. I do know that. So I don't approach this work from an absolute standpoint where 100% of the time you need to do X, Y, Z, or like I'm always right with this. We live intersectional, complex lives that like one singular thing isn't going to capture anything. So I just don't believe that there's like 100% a wrong thing and 100% a right thing. And I think social media has been portrayed as like the 100% wrong thing, which is just so far from the truth. One, the connection that comes with social media, especially for marginalized youth. And we're actually seeing that now in the data. Right now, there's research coming out that is showing, especially 2SLGBTQIA+ folks, that the ways in which they're able to build loving, affirming community, those three words again, right? Online, they find is more sustainable, more long-term, has a more long-term healthy impact on their mental health. 3, feels safer to them than it sometimes does out in quote unquote the real world, in which like we only have to open CNN.com and open the news to see what's happening right now with our queer and trans youth to really see that play out, right? So I think the connection that marginalized youth get from social media is being downplayed to a point that I think it's becoming really, really harmful. I also think that social media is largely being lumped in broadly with technology. It's like the scapegoat to blame everything on. Don't like screen time? Well, it's social media. Those are separate things. Don't like AI? It's social media. Those are separate things, right? Don't like kids these days and all of the things they're doing? It's because social media is telling them to do those things. Those are separate things. And so largely I have found it's sort of like almost a political burden shifting. It's like a scapegoat to dump all of these like really sort of hidden toxic views, toxic traits about youth under sort of a palatable, well, I don't want to say that like I don't support queer and trans youth, but I can say that social media is bad because it's grooming them to all these weird trends that youth are doing. It's this like scapegoat to burden shift sort of toxic ideology onto. And almost the vast majority of the youth that I talk to and listen to say like, listen, yeah, there's problems with it, but it's how we get our news. And that's really important to us. And we see that play out with things like Arab Spring, where it is real news, it's validated news, it's not AI, it's not fake, and it spreads so much quicker than sometimes what we're able to see from traditional media methods. 2, also Arab Spring is a good example. We don't always get, like we like to talk, at least in the US, we like to kind of sometimes talk bad about other countries and their journalism and free speech. But like our media, of course, has its own bias, its own sort of capitalistic leanings in whatever direction the money is flowing. And we're able to see social media largely cut through that and to give youth news globally from so many different cultures and regions of the world a lot quicker and a lot more accurately than sometimes we see through traditional media. And then, of course, I think of like citizen journalism, right? Which, of course, like with anything, can come with its problems. But when we talk about systemic violence, when we talk about police violence, violence from folks in uniform, which I know is a whole separate episode, but we know being able to film those helps with movements. It helps with harm reduction. It helps spread information. Right now, we're seeing a lot about the ICE raids happening that is so scary, especially to communities like mine and the ones in which we serve. And social media is a great tool to spread that information. And so there's just so many good uses for social media that falls under the good category that like youth keep telling us it is not a zero-sum game. It is not a zero, don't use it at all sort of. It's a tool. It's a resource. And you can use tools and resources for good. You can use it for bad. You can use tools and resources too much, too little. It's all about finding that balance. And the ways in which I think adults and folks within our behavioral health field have sort of traditionally approached it in the past was that it's all bad. I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to name names here, but I was at a conference and it was some pretty big names, both in our government and in our field. And it was talking about social media from like a absolutely don't do it. It's so harmful for youth. Be it none of the presenters were youth, none of the organizations were youth led. There was no youth in the room. It was just like, welcome to this closed door meeting of adults to talk about how bad social media is for youth,
Not
right?
BHT then, surely.
Yeah, no, it was not. It was not. No, it was not. So after they get done with this like huge, like long spiel, I kid you not, they were like, okay, everyone take out your phones, scan the QR code to do our email survey, and then like and subscribe our YouTube page. And if you want to share it on LinkedIn and go on Facebook, we would really appreciate it. And we have all these upcoming webinars coming up that, you can find those at our Eventbrite page. And it was just like,
Wow.
y'all, and that's a big part, I think, of youth advocacy also that we miss is that this could be done intergenerationally. And it could be so beautiful. Like we miss that sometimes as adults, that if we just sort of slowed down and remembered what it was like for us growing up, what was our version of social media? Like cable or colored TV or TV and generator or newspapers. Like there's always been this like advanced in technology and arts and journalism and media and ways to get information that has been demonized throughout the generations. And again, all these things come with problems. I get it. But largely, I think we're burden shifting onto social media when we really shouldn't. And the last thing I will say about this, just because I think social media is such a good emblematic example of what's happening, is that the vast majority of youth coming to me, talking with us, coming to Youth Move National, are like, listen, I open my front door and I'm terrified of all of the violence that's taking place globally. I don't even want to talk about Iran right now, right? Like I turn on the news and the world is terrifying. What I need is less violence and less war. I walk out my front door and I see 90-degree weather in like February. Climate change is very real and it is affecting my community, my life, my neighborhood. We have to cancel school because it's too hot and we don't have air conditionings. Climate change is very real and it's affecting my life. I'm graduating high school and I have zero money and I can't find a job. And if I do find a job, it is minimum wage and I can't afford housing. And I am being told by politicians it's because I purchased avocado toast and refuse to live with a roommate. So I can't find stable employment, stable wages, which of course affects my ability to find food. And so that's why I think youth are so mad about social media, because not only is it the wrong thing to focus on, they are screaming at us about the things that are truly affecting them, that truly matter to them. And they're the same things that affect all of us, that affect me, that affect you, that like, it's that like the world is on fire, both like literally and figuratively. And we're like, you know what? Social media is the problem. Just turn off your phone. Okay, cool. Like, thanks, Gramps. Like that's going to solve my day-to-day problem. There's food in the pantry and I have a living wage job because I turned off Facebook and didn't buy avocado toast. Thank you. Yeah, so I know that I've been talking about social media for a while now, but it's such a good example because it's leading down sort of dangerous paths where we're sort of blaming it on everything and essentially claiming that like youth, again, are inherently broken, inherently fragile, inherently weak. And so we can see things such as like rising rates of autism. And we're hearing like, well, it's because like youth are inherently broken. Well, no, it's because we're lowering stigma. We're talking about it more. People feel more comfortable coming out. We're getting better at diagnoses. Science is happening. We're learning more. There's so many really real, valid reasons why we're seeing these things. And in a lot of ways, that's a great thing. We're making progress in a lot of good ways in our field. And then all of a sudden, like, no, we're seeing it because like there's something inherently wrong with this generation. It's in the drinking water. It's the fluoride. You know what I mean? It's like this thing. And then we're doing the same thing with things around queer and trans youth as well. It's just, it's so scary when people are able to sort of push policy through because they can just easily point to this new generation is inherently broken. Then they're the problem. Then they're at fault. It's the victim's fault. There's something wrong with them. It's not us. It's not the system. It's not the global world that we've been put in and us participating in the way in which we do. Nope, it's just youth. And that's really, really dangerous. So I hope that makes sense.
Really great points, Tate. Thank you so much. I'd love to circle back to the peer support piece. It feels like peer support is seemingly everywhere now, but the field doesn't really seem to agree on anything at the same time. What is it? How to provide it? So help me understand, what is peer support to you and how does your organization engage with it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. And we have 7 hours for me to answer this question, right? Yes. Okay. So let's start at the beginning, right? I think folks who are just now learning about peer support or just now really kind of fully advocating for peer support, I think largely view it and have seen it as a workforce, which it is, and it's a valuable workforce. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But peer support started as a grassroots movement. It started as something that was predicated upon abolition-based movements, liberation-based movements that said our current systems harm us so much that we need to take care of this for community by community outside of those formal systems. And there's a whole path still of peer support advocators that are staunchly anti-workforce, and they hold on to that grassroots movement feel of it, which is great. I mean, I think all of the things are needed. And so I think, one, just knowing where it came from, I think will be helpful. Two, even the folks who kind of do both or are on like Youth Move National side, we're a little bit more workforce and credentialing and things, argue just about that, about credentialing. Like some folks say, no, my lived and living experience as a peer is all the credentialing I need. And there's other folks that say, yes, and you need a little bit more, right? You need to learn how to work with certain populations, how to do trauma-informed care. What is intersectionality? How do you assimilate and acclimate to some of these social justice theories and practices so that you're ensuring not only are you not re-traumatizing yourself, but you're not creating additional harm to the folks you seek to serve. And that does take learning. That does take growth. That does take practice and patience and peers to help you get there, because that's what we believe in, right? And so we fall a little bit more on we like the workforce side of it because we're just as important. And this is another I statement, so viewers at home don't get mad at me, but like, I feel like we are just as important as clinicians, just as important as primary care doctors, just as important in folks prescribing medication. And I think a lot of the research does show that we are able to have equal, if not in some spots more, value to folks' mental health. And I just feel like valuing that formally with a livable wage, with benefits, with credentialing, with education, with support, with a whole field that's able to step in and support and to do professional development and do all of those things is incredibly valuable. And so, we're fighting with this side, we're fighting with these folks. And so I just think that sometimes folks get wrong that it's just like a simple thing. Oh, it's just people that get paid a minimum wage to walk around and to talk to people. No, it is so much more valuable and complicated and important than that. And complicated, right? Like even within the field, there's so many nuanced conversations happening around ways in which to do it right, which I think is great. I actually wouldn't change that because that dialogue pushes us forward, no matter where we fall on that spectrum, into new and exciting ways. And hopefully that dialogue helps us all to be a little bit better. The second thing too is like our definition of peer tends to shade wildly based upon who you ask and what organization and who's saying it, largely in two ways. I think one, near peer is, I think, a lot of times what folks are referring to. They're like, yeah, we do peer support. We've got a 17-year-old working with a 37-year-old. That's not a peer. That's period. That is not a peer, right? So something that's really important to the work of Youth Move National is, again, those two buckets. How close can you get to someone's identity, queer and trans person of color and disabled? Okay, we're going to match you with someone who's queer and trans, disabled, and a person of color. And, not or, not and or, just and, that lived and living experience, who has also been impacted by the child welfare system, gang involvement, houselessness, poverty, etc. You've got to have both of those things. Now, obviously, intersectionality is real, and we're all literally different people, which I think is beautiful and should be celebrated. So nothing will ever be 100%, of course. But it's our goal as practitioners, it's our goal as leaders, as mentors, as people in the field to get it to as 100% as close to that as we can. Like, I really see that as our goal. And I just don't see people trying that hard to get to that 100% mark in both of those buckets. I also think one of the big things that I've seen folks within the field say is a really good positive that we're seeing coming out of our current administration, which is fine. Like, I'll take the positives. If there's positives, I'll take it. Is that this current administration really seems to support peer support. And I think that that is fantastic. That's progress. That's a movement in the right direction. But their definition of peer support comes staunchly, specifically named without diversity, equity, inclusion, race, the 2SLGBTQIA plus community, disability as something that is inherently flawed and needs to be fixed or solved, instead of something that just makes us different and like we're disabled by systems. If you just accommodated for us, like we wouldn't actually be disabled for. And when you have those qualifiers, when you add that asterisk to peer support, at least myself and Youth Move National would say that's actually not peer support. So you're not talking about peer support at all, unless you are coming with a critical intersectional equity lens. And so I think it's great. I love peer support. Like, Youth Move National has, I think still to this day, the only national youth peer support curriculum that is youth-led and youth-driven, that is entirely based upon both all of those fancy things we want to hear, peer-reviewed, validated, evidence-based research, and directly with people with lived experience who then train on it and do that accreditation. I believe we're still one of the only national organizations that do that. And we've been able to see a lot of success. But for an administration that supports peer support, that is really in limbo and really going away right now because it's seen as being sort of radical DEI work. When like that peer support is radical DEI work by definition, right? Because it's pairing that person who gets it, who gets you, who sees you, who's going to be there to listen and to affirm, not to judge, not to solve, not to tell you what's wrong or to steal your agency and self-determination. The tenet is to like hold space for you and listen and to help guide you as you make your own decisions based upon holistically and authentically who you are. And I really feel like we're at a crossroads where the field is getting things sometimes so much wrong that I'm really scared that we're going to run in this direction. You know, and capitalism is a whole different podcast, right? But we're seeing large companies, large for-profit companies enter the field, and it's a money grab, just like 2020 and racial equity was, right? All of a sudden, Black Lives Matter to everybody, and we all have DEI statements until 3 years later when it's not profitable anymore and it's nowhere to be found. And if you do that, it may be short-term gains for our field, but it's not sustainable, and it's going to hurt us so much badly long-term because we're going to have to pick up the pieces and start over again. So that's kind of what I'm worried about as far as peer support right now in the field.
Once again, who could have offered a better description of just offering just the, when done correctly, the power of peer support? And, you know, I've experienced it myself. And at the same time, I've also over years got a bit disillusioned and even fell into the trap of, oh, that's just like a baby clinician, right? No, actually,
For sure, right.
completely different experience. And again, you just outlined how critical these services are. And it's got to be done right, though. Otherwise, all the reasons you said. So, well, Tay, I really do wish we had like 7 hours. I have so many more questions, but if I could ask you to share a little bit about where people could learn more about Youth Move National, how can they get involved? That would be wonderful.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So as cliched as it is, check us out on the web. Like, I love our website so much. It is so beautiful. So youthmovenational.org, check it out, do a deep dive. Like, that's the best way to find us. We are on social media, right? So here's a plug for social media in general. And so check us out on all of the platforms. I personally am big on LinkedIn. So find me, connect with me on there. And really, even though sometimes there's this notion that like the executive director, the positionality is like untouchable, I am always around. I am always answering emails. I'm always here. So even if you just want to reach out directly to me, please feel free. You can find my email address and phone number on our website, and I'm always available to help out and answer any questions, and always looking to be wrong as well. So if there's things that you feel like are growth edges that we've talked about today, come call me into a conversation. I'd love to hear it. So yeah, check us out on the web. Like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe. I just thrilled to support your work and get the message out. Thank you, Tay, for taking the time, sharing your powerful experience, story, and just the impact that you have had on so many. I don't know that was able to even show through in this, but I'm sure those who hear your story believe me when I say that. And if you like this conversation, these are the types of conversations that we like having at the Behavioral Health Tech Conference. So be sure to save the date later this fall, the largest event focused on expanding access to mental health, addiction, IDD through tech, innovation, and health equity. And thank you once again, Tay, for joining.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Expanding Access. We hope you're feeling inspired by today's discussion. If you've enjoyed the episode, subscribe and share it with your network. For more content and opportunities to get involved in transforming care, visit behavioralhealthtech.com. Until next time, let's keep pushing boundaries and expanding access together.
This podcast is produced by Outcomes Rocket, your healthcare exclusive digital marketing agency. Outcomes Rocket exists to help healthcare organizations like yours to maximize their impact and accelerate growth. Visit outcomesrocket.com or text us at 312-224-9945.